I had something come to mind, and I was looking at some scriptures, and this is what came to mind about Passover. And there's no, for those not knowing, there's no condemnation in Messiah. But speaking of, as often as I have about, the, you know, unbelievers, false believers, the carnal that do not understand, they're not learning. And so what they do is in vain. And the death that's inside can't be seen because they create an image. To those that can't see, they will just see the image. It can only be seen by those that have life, because only life sees things. Those that are dead don't even know they're dead. That's why they can't be spoken to. Not to say not literally, they can't hear the words because they're dead. And I was looking in Numbers 9:6. It was interesting because those numbers again, I might have put 6:9 in the description. I'm not sure now. I have to correct it. Let me go there on, yeah, it is Numbers 9:6. But anyways, the Passover day, the 14th day of the first month, which has nothing to do with our calendar, as I've learned. Not even that long ago. It took quite a while just to see some of these things and know them, start learning what the true days are. It's always the same on the heavenly calendar. It's always the same day of the same first month. 14th day at twilight or evening later in that day. I would think it's even night at that time. That's when Messiah died. When they killed him was Passover on the 14th. And then not to be on the stake because the very next morning would have been Sabbath, so they didn't want to keep him on the stake on the Sabbath. So they had the 14th day preparation even at night, which is the Passover lamb being killed, was the preparation day, and it wasn't Sabbath because Sabbath doesn't start at night. This is a problem with all those that say Sabbath starts at night. It's incredible. It's a contradiction beyond contradictions, and they never speak about it. It's stupid. It's blind. They can't hear either. Most of them won't hear. They won't want to hear. It takes a miracle to hear even the simplest of things. So their Sabbath is darkness, which contradicts everything for what Sabbath really is, and rest in him. Messiah died the 14th. 9th hour, it was 14th, and then the next morning, 15th, which is a Sabbath, and the unleavened bread is on the 15th, and 15th is always a second Sabbath, and unleavened bread, I believe that's why it's called a high day. And plus Messiah was dead on the 15th in the morning. He was already taken down so that he wasn't going to be left on a Sabbath, which starts at morning. So they had all night before the sun rises. At sunrise, it's Sabbath. It's the 15th in the morning the next day. And that was the first day of unleavened bread. And then, Messiah's death, representing and meaning he is the Sabbath rest through death, through dying to the old man, something the carnal man cannot see. He can only see literal death. That's his understanding, which is not the understanding. It cannot be lived. None of the Father's word can be lived without doing his will and having his spirit and him giving the understanding. It cannot be seen. So a believer has to grow. Just like a little child grows, it cannot understand what it will when it's 10 years old. It cannot understand and do when it's finally 15 or 20 years old, And then the wisdom increasing, representing that, learning new things. This is speaking of spiritually growing and learning, which is life. This is the only truth. There is no old covenant anymore. And what old covenant means, it's new covenant. But those that are carnal will often say renewed covenant because they're renewing the old, because they're wicked, because their heart's deceitful above all things and they have zero understanding. And they hate Messiah just as much as the Pharisees hated Messiah, that were old covenant law keepers in their own mind. And none of them kept the law, like Messiah says. Don't you teach the law, and yet none of you keeps it? None. Who believes that word? None. None of them did, because Messiah knows what man is. We're supposed to know, learn. We read elsewhere, no one had to testify or go to him to tell him, because Messiah knew what was man's heart. We read that elsewhere, John, I think. He didn't need any testimony or to hear from anybody, because Messiah knew man's heart and what it is, what's in it. He knows that without the Father's Spirit, they're dead, they're wicked, their heart's corrupt. There is no one good, no one righteous. He's the only one that had the Father's Spirit during his ministry and during growing up. No one else had it the way he did. And the prophets of old, this is just to be, the words will never do it. The words aren't the understanding. Those that were prophets, true prophets, had the Spirit come on them, but it was not the same. If it was the same, then there would be nothing special about the Spirit being poured out after Messiah's death and resurrection and the promise being given. How come we read they never received the promise? These all died without the promise. It's just outwardly carnal at best. That's what the old prophets were. They heard the words of the Creator through however, whether literally hearing or through dreams. He didn't get them in their heart. Their heart never learned the law. Everything is outwardly about the kingdom of carnal Jerusalem. These things are to be kept within. And when someone doesn't see anything, there is nothing to keep in, because you can't see what you need to. It literally doesn't exist. There's no discernment. There's no rightly dividing between two things, good and evil, this or that. It's all one blob, and it all looks the same, which is evil. Coming out of Egypt, we read what that looks like with letters coming out of Egypt, but coming out of Egypt is not marching literally from whatever city we're in out into the desert. That's not the understanding, and yet those words are true. That's what it is. Those words are true. It's going from Egypt and following the Creator out into the desert. These things have to be happening in the heart. All of his word has to be being lived in the heart. Absolutely. Not everything outwardly necessarily, because there needs to be a discernment and rightly dividing between the carnal and spiritual, natural and earthly, or natural and heavenly, earthly and heavenly. Being born again is not a carnal understanding. It can't be understood by those that are dead and not truly born. But pride will say otherwise, because it can read words. A serial killer can pretend to be a Christian and deceive all of Christianity by saying, I believe in Jesus, the Trinity, the Incarnation, and now I'm a Christian, and say a few other religious terms and say God a few times every now and then. It would deceive all of Christianity. A literal serial killer, presently, not repented, presently a serial killer, to bring it out, would go right in front of a Christian and they wouldn't see that it's a serial killer. No, they wouldn't. If he played his image right, if he says the right words, I'm a Christian now, I'm done. It's not about empty, vain words, but that's what it is to the carnal man. Say a few right words, whatever right is in someone's mind, and that proves something. It proves you're a good person now, and you're in religion, you're accepted now because you got your doctrine right. When the understanding is always connected to the works in reality. Doctrine teaching is not just for words to say, empty and vain. But their mouth is near him. They honor him with their lips, all carnal people, religious or not. But their heart is far from him. It's gone. It cannot see him. It does not do the Father's will and doesn't want to. It doesn't know what that is. So it renews the old covenant and conforms to its heart, creating doctrine, renewing the old covenant, so that it can renew. Yes, that's a train horn giving a little confirmation now, loud and clear. What the carnal man is an enemy of the Creator today and Messiah today. Not called Jesus. You can read what his name is. It's just become incredible simple to me. It's right in there for everyone to read. That that can look it up. Anyone that looks it up, they can all read it equally. Yehoshua or Yehoshua. I'm not sure if it's at the end. It might be, but that's the word. That's the name, and it's transliterated as Joshua in Scripture. This is the one that got them out of Egypt, got them to the promised land. The children. Messiah taught this. You have to be like a child to enter the kingdom. Don't make these go away. You have to be like a child. What's he saying? He's teaching them parable by grabbing a child and saying, don't make them go away, for such is the kingdom of heaven. You have to be like a child within, and whatever that means, which must be given. That's all it basically is, because if it's not given, then it's just empty, dead words someone's here and they can't see what's being spoken of. You have to be like a child, like the children that got to the promised land, not the first generation, the rebellion, which is representing all those under Moses, under carnal commanding, leading people that are Moses, telling people what to do. They tell people to keep the letters with zero understanding, and they contradict and they're partial with it, all of them. They say you must do this, you must guard this day, but then they never give you the understanding of why they must also kill a literal lamb today and offer all these offerings. How come they never give the understanding of all these different things, many? How do they know the difference between what you must do and what you shouldn't do, and what's spiritual and not? What's carnal, what's natural, spiritual? They don't. They just stay quiet because they don't know. But they act like they do, and that's where the sin is. They act like they know. No renewed covenant law keeper according to the old covenant and the letters of the law that kill keeps the law in the heart. None of them. They don't keep the letters either. They pick and choose what they do. They don't do the many dozens or hundreds of things that they can read with the letter in every finest detail. These things are to be done. It's just that you can't learn them in one day. They have to be, the understanding has to be asked for, and for everything, for every word. Messiah did say live by every word. Right, because he's speaking out of understanding, living whatever they mean to be done in the heart. That's how that's true. But it's going to sound like living by every literal word according to the letters. It doesn't matter what someone thinks Messiah is saying. That's wrong. They can't understand his words. It's interesting we don't have anything for teaching the kingdom of heaven, Messiah's words, to bring out all these different things. I mean, the understanding has to be given. There's no other way. It has to be lived in the heart. Why do we read that? What does that mean to live by every word? Well, it's for believers, for those that know. If they don't know, there's no condemnation for what we don't know if we believe. Because you can't know what you don't know. It has to come. It has to be asked for. It has to be given. So there's no condemnation for not knowing something, as long as someone is wanting to do the Father's will. And they have to find out what that is for themselves for real, which is not doing your own works, not doing your own things, not controlling your own life in a delusion, in pride and rebellion, where people are tricked and heavily delusional and deceived for a judgment, for thinking that they own their life when they don't, and that they control and create their destiny. They don't. They couldn't do a single thing different than was already prepared and planned 500 years ago before they were even born. They're going to do it down to the letter of whatever the Creator knows. and they're being judged for every work and lawless deed in the heart. And so someone's telling you to stay away from a dead body. Well, you can keep the Passover the second month, a second time for anybody that happens to be unclean through corrupting themselves by being around a dead corpse, like we read in Numbers 9:6 and further. And so then if they think they're righteous by not doing this, they think they're being accepted by the Father in Jerusalem, heavenly Jerusalem, because they didn't touch a dead corpse around Passover. Oh no, this is a lot. This has those words are true. Now it needs to be lived. And how can someone see what it means? The devil's going to attack in spirit. He'll send people to bother you if you're doing something, whatever is right and righteous. It doesn't matter what it is. There'll be a brick wall you have to go through, and you'll have to lose people for doing what's right. And you'll have to be hated, called wicked in people's minds, versus, basically choose the creator or choose man and conforming to man. It's going to try to make you look like it's wicked, it's stupid, shameful, when that's everything that they are: stupid, wicked, and shameful. So it needs to dump its sins on you, because it must be a wicked thing for an unbeliever to hear something about Passover and what these things really mean, and to be kept in the heart when it's got Easter and its pagan worldly days and celebration that it loves to feast and celebrate on with its heart. But all of a sudden, the Creator's days are wicked to this world. All it can do is death. I just heard a story recently, yesterday, I think. Somebody I know, kind of a rough guy, dude, with his works, but what unbeliever isn't? That I heard he's going to like Bible studies or something now, and they told him to go to a graveyard and like create your obituary at the graveyard. One of the first things they told him to do. I'm thinking, right. One of the first things they do to some unbeliever that needs help, that needs truth, and these Bible studies send them to the grave to write your own obituary and meditate on these things. Stupid worldly wisdom makes people get goosebumps, and it's wicked. It's not just evil. It's all they can think about is death in their own mind and heart. Death, death, death. So what does death do? It says that life thinks death all the time, and you're death all the time, because it's death when it can't hear anything good or true. Therefore, it says you're death, because it's death. It can't hear all the good, all the true, anything true or praise towards the creators. It can't see any of that in spirit. It wouldn't know the difference between, a house. What's the saying? The broadside of a barn and like, a ball. Couldn't discern the difference spiritually. And Messiah says, why do you not hear my speech? Why do you not hear my word? Because your father's the devil, and his works you will do. You're of your father, the devil. So you have to do what the beastly kingdoms tell you to do in spirit, and you have to love money. You have to love yourself, love your soul, the old man. You have to be incredibly prideful. You have to resist all truth and guard it and suppress it. You have to hate the true believers. There's no option there. You have to. It's enmity, because his word is true. There's no such thing as a third category where it's just sitting in the middle somewhere, not really caring. No, an unbeliever cannot love a believer, because this is the enmity of this serpent seed and the woman seed, which is spiritual Israel, which is Jerusalem from above, the woman connected through Messiah. The Father and Messiah creating sons of the kingdom, like Adam and Eve create literal sons. Who can see what sons of the kingdom really means? Because it's real. And yet it's not Adam and Eve creating literal sons. It's only something like that. It's not invisible nothingness. It's invisible nothingness to those that are blind. For those that are seeing, it's everything. It's invisible, real things. The carnal magician is just that. He's a magician. The only way to make himself really look spiritual for an image is to do away with things and say they just disappear and vanish, because what it's really doing in its heart, it's teaching that doctrine because it doesn't believe in anything to come. It doesn't believe in the age and ages to come. It doesn't believe in anything to come. So it just disappears things and you float up into some heaven because it doesn't actually believe in anything to come. It's a trick. They'll never tell you that's what they mean in their heart. They'll never tell you what they believe. They can't. You will never hear it at any time from any false believer, what they really believe and who they really are. They can never tell you. Never. Unless they repent. Otherwise, they cannot tell you what they really believe and who and what they really are and what their intentions are, because they're in darkness. They wouldn't know the difference between a wicked intention or good. It's just images that it creates. If it gave something to someone on the street, it did good, period. It can't see anything different. There's something called, I came across like some advertisement for a channel like Mr. Beast. I don't know if it's because, I don't know how it popped up exactly, but I found it, I looked at it, and it's incredibly wicked. I think they even have Mr. Beast burgers, which I actually had a couple orders some time back when I was driving. And I think it's connected to these people, Mr. Beast. They got money coming out of the heavens, apparently, I mean, growing on trees. And they just throw around money, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars all over, and create their little delusion and story, which is 100% fake, which people will take it as real. Even if they say, no, it's fake, they take it as real in their heart. That's why they comment on it and speak about it as if it's real, because they're in delusion and love what's fake. So they create these stories, they rent things for, spend so much money, and the world loves it, promotes it. The people that rent them out love them because they're wicked. That's why they love it. And they do these challenges and just abuse everything that they've been given, even carnally, and break and destroy things and just buy new ones because money is obviously not an issue for whatever reason. They've came across money, inheritance, whatever it is, and now making a bunch of money for creating a wicked channel that's deceiving millions of people, that has nothing to do with anything good at all at any time. There's not a single work that it's ever done at any time that's righteous or good from its heart, not even one. That's what it means that no one is righteous, not even one. None are good. That's what it means. No one can do actual righteousness in reality without the Father, without belief in Messiah, the true Messiah, because there's an anti-Messiah spirit. Since the true Messiah's existence, now there's been the anti-Messiah to counterfeit and create the image that looks like the true for an image, the image of the beast, but it's not real. Its heart is perfectly wicked and backwards, and it hides like a coward. Come out of your hiding. Darkness. You hide in the darkness. You can never say what you are and what you really believe because you're cowards. All of them. And the false prophets are, it's the nastiest thing that there is, because they have to do with his word and they're deceiving people and acting as if they're believers. It would be better if they were not a believer at all. Not better that they didn't claim they were believers. A judgment strong to have nothing to do with the Father and pretend to be a believer. What are they doing? Go and be an atheist proclaimed. Why do they do what they do? Because of that nasty enemy. What else can drive someone so hard to do that and deceive people? It desperately is obeying its father, the devil. Desperately is one little messenger out of hundreds of thousands and millions to stand in the way of truth and lead people to destruction. Now, whoever seeks to do the Father's will, they will know whether the teaching is from the Father above or whether we speak of our own. What about those that don't seek to do the will of the Father? They will not know, but what will they do? Accuse you of being wicked and teaching lies and being lawless. That's not for them. They can't see. For those that don't seek to do the will of the Father, they will not know what true teaching is, whether it's from the Father above or not, or for himself. They will not know. Messiah's death reversed man 6 into 9, dying to that death. We also read in Revelation something like Hades will be cast into the lake of fire. It's the death of death, the grave cast into the lake of fire, and the lake of fire destroys that death and does away with all death, and out of it comes life. Messiah died so that those that die in him now can live, and there is no other way except denial of self and death to the old man, to deny self and do the Father's will. There's no other way, and not do your own thing. While Messiah is dead on the 15th, it's a Sabbath, and it's the beginning of unleavened bread, and he says he is the bread from heaven. And this bread is to purge out the wickedness in us. The unleavened bread is to purge out all the leaven, all the malice and false doctrine that the unleavened bread represents spiritually. The unleavened bread is false doctrine, and wickedness inside needs to be purged out of us over time, constantly. And then he was resurrected right at the crack of dawn, lining up with the creation. Right when the sun rises, the light comes. And the 16th of that month would be the first day of the week on the heavenly calendar, not this evil calendar that the world created. That's the first day of the week. And then we read that on that day there's no work, holy convocation. My understanding on why that is that we read that in wherever we read it, Exodus, Leviticus, is because Messiah was resurrected on that day. So he's the master of the Sabbath. He's the master of Sabbath rest. And that was like a Sabbath, basically. The one special day, his resurrection, would be like a Sabbath. No, that's why we read no customary work, no work on it. Because it's rest. Rest for our souls, like we read elsewhere. Messiah is the Sabbath rest, master of it. What is it to be kicked out of Jerusalem, punished? What is it to be cut off? We read these things about the kingdom for a very good reason. You're cut off in spirit. It's very real. But a dead person, this does not apply to, because they've never lived. They've never seen the Father or heard him at any time. Messiah does, and his people do. Messiah sees and hears from the Father like anybody can read, and believers afterwards to see him in spirit. You have to die. That's why we read with Moses, no one can see him and live. You can't see his face. It's a teaching. It's an understanding. It's not about carnality. Those that die in Messiah through belief can see him and live now. But nobody can see him and live. They're enemies of the Creator. It would require death to see him. You cannot see the Father and live. That's an utter authority in his word. You have to be dead. And what this means in Messiah, through belief, through faith, through denial of self, to see the Father for real. You have to. No one has ever seen the Father and lived face to face like that. That's the understanding. And yet it's not the understanding, because how will an unbeliever understand these words if he's never seen the Father before? They'll teach that you can't see him today because they're unbelievers. They don't see him. That's why they teach you can't see him. Nobody can see in him and live. The carnal person that renews the old covenant will say you cannot see him and live. Therefore they will say no one sees him, because they're devils of their father, the devil, protecting and suppressing and guarding people from all truth, because they don't see him. Nobody else can either. What is it to hear from the Father? It's to hear him in spirit and see him in spirit, which requires death. And so the Passover lamb is the beginning of a believer's journey coming out of Egypt spiritually. That's for each one to learn and find out what this way is. No one will believe you. That's of the world. They're enemies. And it's only war. There is no peace in this place. Have they ever read scripture? It's why we read of all the war. It's war. Every time you go out in this world, it's a war, practically. You come back from battle again because they tried to. You can't give this experience to an unbeliever. Through deceptive, clever means and ways in spirit, try to get you to sin. They just know how to do evil because they're of their father, the devil, and that's who's coming after the people. The devil sends out a flood to believers, but the earth helps out the woman, I think we read, and takes in that flood so that it doesn't destroy us utterly like it was intended to, wants to destroy you badly. And he'll send messengers and servants to come and attack you and test you, to destroy you, even to keep away from his days, as I've experienced on, what was that, the other two tabernacles, and another one about a week before that. I locked my car out 2 times right before it started. It was like a heavy resistance of not wanting to do what's right. Oh, Day of Atonement and then Tabernacles. I locked my car out right before both of those 2 times. Never do that. I never ever do that except then. And other things that happened also that just can't be given for an experience. Can't be given to someone that can't see. So whoever wants to do what's righteous and right, whatever it is, they'll be met with resistance, and people will come and try to take that away from you, because we read you have to be clean. You can't be around dead bodies like we read. How will someone that doesn't see and learn what these things mean? What does that look like in real life for a believer? The enemy will try to bother you through people to try to get you corrupt and get you to do something, whatever it is. That's what I've experienced right on the perfect days. It's pretty crazy. And I'm sure it'll happen again in the coming days. I don't know for sure, but I won't be surprised at all if a flood comes to try to bug me. Because staying away from a dead corpse literally is not the understanding. It will be no benefit for someone. But how do you give that to someone that can't see? You can't. You just hope they believe. And even after belief, someone has a lot of learning and growing to do, a lot. And even years after, we still do, all the way to the end. No one enters the kingdom now or to come unless they enter now through death, through Messiah's death, to die with Messiah, like we read the apostles speaking about these very important things, huge things. Who was there to speak about him for his word for every believer afterwards, since Messiah didn't die yet when he was teaching the gospel of the kingdom for us. He didn't die yet. Who can speak on these things until a little bit after that the Father chooses? That's why we have his writings. And he's the master of Sabbath, the Sabbath rest in him through belief, through the only way is dying. That's it. No one can see the Father and live. You can see the Father if we have died with him to live with him, because that old man is foul to the Creator. The old man, who and what we all are of ourselves, is wicked, and it cannot be going through his narrow way. He cannot allow corruption. It needs to be dead and dying, and he needs to see the blood sacrifice of Messiah and what this means and does for his people now. He won't allow anything else to come through to see him and hear from him. But the many will say that, no one can see him and live today, and they don't understand that. Messiah sees the Father and hears from him, and he lived because of it, because he's filled up with the Father's Spirit. And every believer after that's dead to sin, that's the understanding. It's not that it's over, it's just it needs to be true and continue to be true. The only way to see him is through death. Then you can see the Father. So you didn't live anymore. You had to die to see him. No one can see him and live. The old man cannot live and see him at the same time. To see him is a death, which is a moment a believer believes. They don't even understand it when they believe, in the beginning, because I didn't. What does a baby understand when it's born? It needs to grow up. That's why we read about milk. This thing is being taught in all creation. Start with milk, and then it can eat some solid food later to grow. Milk doctrine. To get to the deeper things, which is like the meat of his word, deeper things, solid food. And not like stumbling over the same small things over and over and over again like an unbeliever will. Because it can't see. Those eyes are the new birth, through belief. Those are the spiritual eyes and ears. Before belief, being born again from above, it only has eyes, but they cannot see. It only has ears, but they cannot hear. But the little newborn, for a picture, it's the truth. Those are the eyes and ears that see and hear real things. And it can't hear the Father very good at all, can't understand in the beginning. That's why a baby can't understand even after it's born. Could try to, and it doesn't understand till later, a little more. So they need a shepherd. And the shepherd leads to the true shepherd. That's it. Nothing to do with self. That's it. But a false prophet, his intention from the heart is to gather disciples for himself, pridefully, carnally, for himself, for his own benefit. And he needs them in this way badly to continue his wicked ministry. That was the longest horn sound I've ever heard. It's amazing. It just kept on going. It's still blaring. Yes, perfect timing. Yes, it's incredibly important. Since I'm close to the train tracks, I get a feel for what they do. That was an incredibly long nonstop. Who can explain that? What made the person hold the horn so long this time, right at this second? Who can know? Does the person understand what's going on? No, not of self. He has no clue. Yet the timing is just perfect, just like an utter confirmation. Unusually long. Messiah said, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the Father's mouth. That would be every word in his word. Thus says Jehovah, the every word. And about Passover that's coming up, these are some of his words, and they're for us. And they are to be kept for those that can and know about it. For those that don't know, they just simply don't know yet. That's all. There's no condemnation for someone that doesn't know. And we don't get whatever a new understanding is, we don't get it right on day one, the first time. It takes practice, time. So the Father accepts us only through death, and this covenant is an agreement that the old man will die until it vanishes away continually. Now he has to judge us for our sin. Through belief, though, we need to die and repent to these sins continually till the end, till we're perfected, till we understand his word so much, just as Messiah did, and the last bit of our life has to be perfected. Because Messiah was perfected, and we read about believers being perfected, but those words don't mean anything. It's just glossy haze that doesn't touch the heart at all before understanding. We're supposed to be perfected and fulfill the law. First, all things naturally were fulfilled after Jerusalem's destruction. Everything was fulfilled in a sense, the natural and then now the spiritual. So all prophecy, all scripture was fulfilled. Everything that could ever be written or done with literal prophecy was done already. But now the time of the kingdom of heaven is that these prophecies are the spiritual prophecies of who and what man is, what we do, what not to do, what people do, and what they must do because of prophecy, and learning them, and prophecies being fulfilled every single day until the end. About the kingdom of heaven. This is the war. This is what it's going to be like. This is why we read these scriptures and all the different stories. They're for us to learn for real about something about the kingdom of heaven within. The whole entire kingdom is within, not without. These offerings are to be learned. These sacrifices are to be learned. And there's different kinds of offerings that can be done. It's not about the carnal thing. It's about whatever it means that needs to be learned and given. Messiah lived it, and it's connected with people offerings also. Waving the sheaf, or however that word is, for the first fruits. Messiah resurrected on the first day of the week, the crack of dawn, the 16th of the month, first month. There's different kinds of offerings and sacrifices. That's why we read of the different kinds. But he doesn't delight in the literal sacrificing of bulls and lambs and blood and these kinds of. It's what they mean that are to be done. And someone can be blessed and more can be given on these feast days, because Messiah and the Father are supposed to feast with his people. He will come and sup with them. So these feast days are important. They're special days where it's like you will not get as much food if it's done right, from my understanding, as a feast day. That's its point. It's not about feasting carnally. That's why the apostle says the kingdom of heaven is not. It's not about eating. It's not eating and drinking and getting merry. It's not what the world does and thinks carnally. It's all it thinks of and can do. Now this feast is Messiah coming near someone in us, his spirit, and the Father feasting with them, giving us spiritual food and understanding and life, which is not interest. It's not. There's no interest to the natural man for that, because that's literally nothingness to him, because none of it's real. Father's not real to an unbeliever. You're a retard for hearing the Father's voice. You're an insane person, like I've also seen it by the two gospel preachers. You're an insane person that hears from Messiah. Yes, they say so openly. You're insane and you need meds. They're talking about themselves. Let it be known, hypocrites, that they talk about themselves literally, perfectly, about their own heart. They need meds. They're spiritually drunk and lost and confused and wicked and evil. Speaks for itself. That's all an unbeliever can do. That's all it ever has done. Every accusation it makes, it talks about itself, and it doesn't even know and cannot see that. I guess I could read some of Numbers. Moses told the children of Israel, who's Moses today, our Messiah in heaven? Moses is a type of Messiah, the greatest prophet. But now Messiah, something greater has come, he said. Yes, it's just true. It's not prideful. It's just true. The Father has made it much greater. The carnal man wants to see an outward appearance of it being righteous and good and full of light. The carnal man loves this. So he masquerades as the truth, makes himself look like he loves righteousness when he hates it. They want to see a physical light shining like Moses' face. They want to see an outward appearance of light when they have no light in them. That's why they want that, because it's carnal. This light represents the true light that is in us, which Messiah was full of light. Light came into the world. And no, literal light didn't shine from Messiah's face, because that's not the meaning. What it means is powerful and real. It is like a light in darkness, and people can see it. They don't know what it is, though. They see it, though. Told the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. Messiah tells us at the proper time in spirit that his people should keep the Passover, and they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at twilight in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that Jehovah commanded Moses, or Moshe. So the children of Israel did. What did Messiah do? He says, I speak whatever the Father gives me command. The Father commands Messiah, yes, Moses, to do the reality of what these things mean that were already done naturally before. Now there were certain men who were defiled by a human corpse, so that they could not keep the Passover on that day, and they came before Moses and Aaron that day. And those men said to him, we became defiled by a human corpse. This is a big deal to a carnal person. But for the Father's intended meaning, it never meant this. It means something that the natural man cannot see or comprehend. It always did. And that wasn't given until the new covenant in Messiah forward, the revelation of Messiah in us. Why are we kept from presenting the offering of Jehovah at its appointed time among the children of Israel? Moses said to them, stand still that I may hear what Jehovah will command concerning you. Must be retarded to hear from the Creator, huh? Then Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, speak. The only way to hear is from speaking. Messiah speaks to his people today. If any one of you or your posterity is unclean because of a corpse, or is far away on a journey, he may still keep Jehovah's Passover on the 14th day of the second month at twilight. On the second month now instead of first. They may keep it. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall have none of it. Leave none of it until morning, nor break one of its bones. According to all the ordinances of the Passover, they shall keep it. But the man who is clean and is not on a journey and ceases to keep the Passover, that same person shall be cut off from among his people, because he did not bring the offering of Jehovah at its appointed time. That man shall bear his sin. And if a stranger dwells among you and would keep the Jehovah's Passover, he must do so according to the rite of the Passover and according to its ceremony. You shall have one ordinance both for the stranger and the native of the land. An unlimited amount of things we have to learn constantly. It's what his word is here for, to be learned. Reading the letters of our own understanding is worthless, and it's death. And that will be an enemy of the Creator that reads letters and thinks it can understand by reading letters. Prideful, carnal, and incredibly biased and partial in all things. Even with the literal law, according to the letters, all of them are partial. They don't keep the law according to the letters. They don't do all the different things written according to the letter. The carnal Jews, they don't even get the Sabbath day right. They start at night. So therefore it's called Sabbath night, but they won't call it Sabbath night. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, and light darkness and darkness light. Maybe I could find scripture on that. Isaiah 5:20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Sweet could be good or it could be evil when it's being put for bitter, and bitter could be good or evil, but it could be evil because it's being replaced with sweet. What are bitter herbs? What do they make you do? They make you cringe. It's not very nice at all. It's not a good flavor. It's bitter in your mouth. Like his word is bitter. After it's digested, it's sweet in the mouth and bitter in your stomach. The Passover with bitter herbs. Yes, a repented heart that's bitter from its wickedness and failures that it's done. Maybe that's what Passover is also about. For bitter herbs, what good will it do? For someone that roasts a literal lamb and eats the flesh with literal bitter herbs and has nothing to do with the Creator in the heart. That's not what we're to do. Literal sacrificing that the Father takes no pleasure in anyways when we read that, but he takes pleasure in what it means, what it always is meant to be done in the heart. Isaiah 66. Thus says Jehovah, heaven is my throne and earth is my footstool. Where is the house that you will build me? Or temple, or church building, and where is the place of my rest? It can't be some wooden building. For all those things my hand has made, and all those things exist, says Jehovah, but on this one I will look. One who is poor in spirit, or one who is poor and of a contrite spirit, and who trembles at my word. He who kills a bull is as if he slays a man. He who sacrifices a lamb as if he breaks a dog's neck. Well, didn't Messiah and the disciples sacrifice the Passover lamb? Yes, they did. It wasn't complete yet until it was complete. They did it according to, as we read. There's a discernment between that time for doing this literal thing and afterwards, which we're not to do. He who sacrifices a lamb as if he breaks a dog's neck. He who offers a grain offering as if he offers swine's blood. He who burns incense as if he blesses an idol. Just as they have chosen their own ways and their soul delights in their abominations, so I will choose their delusions and bring their fears on them. Because when I called, no one answered. When I spoke, they did not hear. That's also through the Father sending his people, and they don't hear his people, and they do not hear. Because his people are one with the Father and Messiah. Messiah spoke, and they did not hear. When I spoke, they did not hear, but they did evil before my eyes and chose that which I do not delight. Hear the word of Jehovah, you who tremble at his word, your brethren who hated you, who cast you out for my name's sake. Said, let Jehovah be glorified, that we may see your joy, but they shall be ashamed. The sound of noise from the city, a voice from the temple, the voice of Jehovah, who fully repays his enemies. Before she was in labor, she gave birth. Before her pain came, she delivered a male child. Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such things? Shall the earth be made to give birth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion was in labor, she gave birth to her children. So the enemy has the masquerade, the harlot, that gives birth to its children, the mother of harlots. Shall I bring to the time of birth and not cause delivery, says Jehovah? Shall I Shall I who cause delivery shut up the womb, says your Elohim. Rejoice with Jerusalem, the new Jerusalem that was born in one day, and be glad with her, all you who love her. Rejoice for joy with her, all you who mourn for her, that you may feed and be satisfied with the consolation of her bosom, that you may drink deeply and be delighted with the abundance of her glory. For thus says Jehovah, behold, I will extend peace to her like a river, and the glory of the Gentiles like a flowing stream. Then you shall feed, on her sides shall you be carried, and be dandled on her knees. As one whom his mother comforts, so I will comfort you, and you shall be comforted in Jerusalem. When you see this, your heart shall rejoice, and your bones shall flourish like grass. The hand of Jehovah shall be known to his servants, and his indignation to his enemies. Behold, Jehovah will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger and fury with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword Jehovah will judge all flesh, and the slain of Jehovah shall be many. Those who sanctify themselves and purify themselves to go to the gardens after an idol in the midst, eating swine's flesh and the abomination in the mounts, shall be consumed together. For I know their works and their thoughts. It shall be that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. There's a little more in Isaiah 66 about the new heavens and new earth. I don't see anything anymore in his word that isn't one, that isn't now, one with two come. The reality in Messiah is now. The kingdom of heaven is now. And his word is for now, all of it, to come. And there's quite a few prophecies of the tables being turned around for his people. They were a curse, and then there'll be a blessing. A curse to the many, to the people, to unbelievers. They're like a curse, a fire. And then he turns the tables around, and then there'll be a blessing in the ages to come. I think that's all I have. So in Isaiah 66, someone that sacrifices a lamb as if he breaks a dog's neck. So the Father showing his displeasure with the literal sacrifices, and because it never meant its own self. But what they mean is good. But doing this literal thing is an abomination when the reality is come in Messiah. And it's interesting, it's in Isaiah 66, carnality 6:6. That's what man loves, though, carnality. He likes creating his own rules, his own laws, and not understanding the Father's word, picking and choosing out of it what makes him righteous, and those that don't do what they say makes them unrighteous and wicked in their own eyes. Each one has a specialty that gets specialized in one or two things mostly, and then his whole entire word becomes through that one or two things. See if it isn't so. If it's about the sun, moon, and stars, then all his word is literally about the sun, moon, and stars. That's what it means to them. And to be a faithful believer working out your own salvation is to speak about the literal night sky, and that's pretty much it. It's that becomes their truth. And whatever it is, it's not that nothing else is ever said at any time. It's just I see every job has a specialization in it, naturally, so also spiritually. All kinds of different jobs And people specialize and get good at the one job. But how many do all of them, all at once and get good at all of it? So it's like each one specializing in its own job. A gatekeeper to those that happen to fall that way and go that way. And if they go another way, there's another gatekeeper somewhere that's standing there at the rock so that nobody comes to Messiah. No, we guard people from him. We don't want anyone to die in Messiah with Messiah. We're guards suppressing all truth. How strong and powerful are all these guards? They're worthless. The Father just whistles and they tremble and fear and faint. They don't get in the Father's way for real. They don't go against him. Only in a delusion it looks like that everyone goes against him, and they do in this way, but they don't actually go against the Creator. No such thing has ever happened. Messiah even says plainly, no one can come to the Father unless he draws them. No one can see him. Someone does have to repent, and that repentance is part of being drawn. It's why we also read his mercy grants repentance, because of his mercy. Someone, consider his mercy repentance. A repentant heart. Someone can be feasting from the Father and Messiah, as Messiah said, we will come and sup with you, and nobody knows. Nobody can see it except the one receiving and others who can see. It can be happening in that moment because, eating food is something like eating spiritual food, but it's not literally eating spirit. It's not literally eating food. That's not the understanding. It's just something like it. And someone could be getting filled up, and to the world, nothing happened, nothing at all. Zero. How would they know if they can't see spiritual things? They act like they do know. That's where the sin increases, by acting and pretending you know when you don't. If it would just be honest, it wouldn't have any sin, like Messiah says. Say you're blind. If you said if you were blind, you would have no sin. But since you say you see, your sin remains. This is the judgment. It goes all the way back to Genesis. Your eyes would be open, says the enemy. No, it wasn't. No, it was through trickery, through clever deception that those words were said. Their eyes, and what that really means, were not open. They were darkened. They did not see good and evil and know the difference between the two. It was a lie, a trick. You shall know good and evil and be like Elohim. No, they weren't. And only in their own mind and heart, through pride, is it like the Creator, but not actually like him, not actually seeing with their eyes opened. Went into darkness, sin, curse. The world can even say that. So how is it that it can think that the enemy's speaking truth? Their eyes were not open. They just realized they were naked and had to cover themselves, but they didn't learn what good and evil is because of sin. So breaking the Father's voice and disobeying his command through sin, their eyes were opened for good, and they learned the difference between good and evil in one day through sin. Well, it's what the enemy says. It's what we read. If you sin and break the Father's voice, your eyes will be opened, and you shall know good and evil. Lie. That is the great lie for all time. That man will know good and evil because of sin and being a sinner. The more he sins, the more he thinks he knows good and evil, and the difference. That's the truth in his own mind and heart. The more he sins, the wiser he becomes. But in reality, he's getting dumber, because that wisdom is pride, and that the worse the sin, the stronger the judgment. So the dumber the Father makes someone in reality. The wiser someone thinks they are in their own eyes, the dumber they are. in reality today. There's more hope for a fool than someone who's wise in his own eyes. That's why we read that. The natural man is wise in his own eyes. There's nothing he can't understand because his father told him so. Just obeying, he doesn't know. He's already doing the works of evil, as everyone did. Now it's time to come out of this evil. Everybody was in it. All the Father's people were in it in Egypt. There was no one outside of it. They were all in slavery, and now it's time to come out. From darkness, which is Egypt, which is this world, and all sin and darkness in the heart, and come out of it as the light increases, the dark moon coming out on a dark moon on the 15th, at night on a dark moon, or the 14th at night, 15th. That middle of the month is dark, and then the light increases, coming out of darkness and into his marvelous light. Or, as some would say, or many, coming out of his marvelous light and into darkness. And that's what the Father's doing. He's leading people into darkness, they say. It's pretty backwards. It must be the enemy speaking right there. Doesn't matter who it is. That's perfectly backwards. Coming out of light and going into darkness every day further. That's the understanding. Coming into his rest on Sabbath night. What does that mean spiritually for them if they get the natural backwards and wrong? They can't understand it. Their darkness, it's speaking who and what it is. Sabbath night, Sabbath darkness, and they won't repent. They won't turn away. They won't hear the words. Most won't. They get hardened, just like we read. Don't get hardened like the Israelites. Don't get hardened like all these that fell, thousands of them in one day. They're falling now. They're getting spiritually diseased and plagued, as the world does, because the Father shows he does this. How does he show it? Through his word, by giving us the understanding of it, giving us the understanding of the letters, the plagues, the frogs. It plagues all of darkness, all of Egypt. Foul spirits. Those frogs represent something real. It doesn't represent something that's not real. That would be like a parable of a parable of a parable. The seed is his word, so that seed is real. It's a natural thing, but it represents something real spiritually, not something that's not real. His word is real, has power in spirit. It's real. It's not just letters. And that word is plucked by a bird. Something real takes it away from them, bounces right off of them. That's what it looks like. It's resisting it so much. And that bird is something separate, isn't it, than the seed, which are both separate from a person. And then we have the ground, different kinds of earth. The only good one is the good ground that lands in good soil and deep enough. It sprouts, it hears the word and it has joy, but it keeps going. But there's many that hear it and they die shortly after a little bit of testing that was bound to come for everyone that believes, and they're offended at Messiah, the true one. Or they get choked up by the world and all the love and lust of it with their heart, and it chokes them out, the weeds, the world. Yeah, it's pretty offensive to all those that are weeds. Everyone was a weed first. The whole world is weeds, except those that are coming out of this Egypt. They're not weeds. They're becoming what they need to become now, something good. Vessel of honor or a vessel of dishonor. Both have a purpose. But there's many vessels of honor and few vessels of, or many vessels of dishonor and few honor. The Creator is the owner of the creation. He's the owner of the vineyard. and he sends prophets, and they come, and servants, and they get stoned by those that claim to believe, and they stone them. Now what will the master do to these servants that stone these prophets? And the wicked people answered, the unbelievers answered Messiah rightly by saying, he will utterly destroy the wicked. And then the next very words of Messiah said, that's what's coming to you. It's what you are. Oh, it's over. Kill him. Fulfill his words now. Fulfill Messiah's words by trying to kill him and prove that his parable was for them, against them. Then they sought after to kill him with their heart. Their heart already did the murder. Stab, 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 stab. How dare you say anything against God? It's only for other people, not us. That's who the natural man is. As long as it's pointing to someone else besides it itself. As soon as this parable is about them now, oh no, murder time. But notice how they can answer without seemingly a problem and say he will utterly destroy these wicked. And even taking pride in answering like that. But as soon as it's applied to them, kill him, kill Messiah now. It can always look like it's of the truth as long as it doesn't have the understanding or live by it, or as long as it's not applying to their own mind and heart from themselves. Then it can look like it answers in truth. That's how false prophets work. They're magicianship. They get good at it. They don't talk about real things. None of what they say applies to their own heart in reality. Therefore, it can talk all day long and honor him with their lips. When the Spirit comes and stabs their heart with his word, the sword, then it applies to their heart. Watch out. That's when they'll murder you. They'll throw you out and cast you out of the synagogue. If you will, it's not about a synagogue, casting people out. No truth allowed in here. No truth allowed in here. We cast people that speak truth out. And those that are healed by Messiah from being blind, we cast them out. Who are you to teach us, sinner? You were born in sins and you're going to teach us. They said they were not born in sins. They were not sinners themselves. No, apparently not in its own mind. It can only say I'm a sinner when it doesn't have any power or meaning for its own self. Because there is no power or spirit in them to even reveal their own darkness. It can say those words as long as it's not about its own self and without true understanding. All day long, then someone can look like they speak truth and praise the Creator Almighty because they don't speak in truth, because they don't understand it and it doesn't apply to them. Whatever those words truly mean doesn't apply to themselves, to their own self. It's a delusion. Then it will swear to the grave that it does apply, that it'll do all these tactics. That's how it's always been. Seeing that clearly, that's what everyone will do. It's going to defend the lie to its death, to try to make it look like the true, to masquerade all the way to the grave that what it claims and holds on to is true when it's a lie. When secretly in its heart it's an abomination to believe in the true Creator and hear from him for real in 2022. That's an abomination to every false prophet that ever lived. They don't actually believe that. Once again, they could say those words when it has nothing to do with any power or understanding or applying to self. It's always a one-way street with the false prophet, with wicked man. It only applies and goes towards someone else. It never comes back to them. It's a one-way street, check valve. As long as the beast is somewhere out there and it's not going back to its own heart, then it can say, yeah, I believe in the scripture. I believe in the beast. The image of the beast, yeah, it's true. I believe it. If they could see some of it for real, they would be trembling and shaking from its power and truth and how bad this world is. It obviously can't see. No one that's been blind has ever seen anything. So that how do you get through to them? You throw a seed at them, that's it, and hope the Father sprouts it. But if he doesn't, we just ran into a brick wall. It won't hear any further. So then admonish once or twice, and then that's it. It'll just be sin, and they'll get their desire, which is wrath and rage, and steal some of your oil and make you destroyed a little bit. That's what they want secretly. They get off on it. They'll never tell you they do, but they prove it by their works that they like doing that. They try to stir up problems on purpose in real life all the time, agitate someone on purpose, and then get angry when someone gets angry at them. It's a delusion. Yeah, your mom is fat, and then when someone goes back at them because they got angry at what the person said, then they're God Almighty. How dare you get angry at me? How dare you? And it rages. It started it on purpose. It wanted that destruction. I don't care what it says. It proved it by its works. It wanted it. That's how it works in heaven. It doesn't matter what man says. It matters what the works are. It proved it by its works. It wanted destruction. It makes a covenant with death and the grave. That's how backwards mankind is. He is death. Messiah died to this death so that man can live that believe in him. And those that don't are still in the grave. They're still in death, in spiritual, real death. Nobody knows how good they masqueraded until light comes. They can't see they're doing what we learn and see and speak of. When light comes, then they'll see that these words were true. That's the frightening thing about being blind. You don't see, not even yourself. Now, unless someone's seeking the Creator with all their heart to see, they won't see. You do have to ask. And it can get dark pretty quick with a little bit of real sin. Real sin, we have to learn what real sin is, and this real sin causes death. Then the judgment comes and it gets dark outside. They're not learning. And then the day comes again. So you have to go through some darkness. Who knows how much? A lot. Half of the 24-hour period, on average, it's like half of it's dark. A lot of darkness to go through. That's why Messiah says, pull out the lamp with oil in it so you can see at night. Just enough to see so you don't stumble, but you don't see as much when it's dark. That means you can't see the real things, spiritual things as much. How do you give that and stuff it into someone's mind? You can't. Something about that parable and natural thing is very real. In the dark with a lamp, you can't see as far. You just see what's around you. But when it's daylight, you can see far out. You can see further. You can see a lot more trees, things, rocks, water. It's harder to see other people when it's dark. It's harder to see their sins, harder to see your own sins. Well, I guess that would be total darkness. The lamp is so that we can see something, at least about our own self, or a little bit of light around us. It's burning oil, and the oil is his spirit. So when burning oil is, it's burning. That's painful. Burning his spirit like that. His spirit's like a light too. He is light. So you won't have enough through the night if you just give it away to someone that wants to steal it. Then we read, how will we have enough for ourselves? Go buy it at the marketplace. See if you can get it over there through buying and selling and loving money, merchandise, books. Corrupt his word. See if you can get it now. The judgment comes back on you as you measured it. It comes back. If the heart says and acts like it can be bought, go and buy it now when you need it and see if it works. That's what the parable is. The 5 wise virgins are saying we won't have enough for ourselves. Sounds prideful. Sounds what? Like it's not willing to share. It's because concerning this truth, there is no sharing. That's not how it works with this parable, with these specific things. In this truth and reality, the Father gives just enough for someone for the night, and they can't spare any. Plus, they want to steal it, so that's not going through the right way. Giving it to them is to accept the wicked way. It's more than one thing going on. In this case, it sounds like it's not, like it doesn't want to share, and it has nothing to do with that. It just sounds like it and looks like it to someone, means nothing. What it sounds like and looks like means nothing. The understanding has to be had. All by itself, it doesn't matter what it sounds like and looks like. It definitely looks selfish. It's all mine, my oil. I'm not sharing any. That's what the natural eyes will see in its own mind, and it's not the meaning. And a judgment comes back on the 5 foolish virgins. So this is a hard parable. Nothing is going like the natural man thinks and sees. This is evil to him to say, go get it at the marketplace. Go buy some. Go buy some of the Father's Spirit at the marketplace. That's what you think of him. So now let it be back on you like that. These are called the wise virgins. The foolish virgins want to steal someone's oil and they don't have oil. They just want some when they're in trouble. It just wants to knock on Noah's boat when it's in trouble. It doesn't want to go through the true way and die to itself and repent. It just wants to steal somebody else's thing. And if you allow that in your boat, they're going to tear up your boat once they get in and throw you out because it's a judgment, because we just allowed evil. And the Father doesn't bless evil, so that person will continue to do evil. It has to. It doesn't matter what it is, what it's about. The person will continue to do evil. It won't be thankful that you allowed evil. It's not possible. You have to do the hard thing, which is the righteous thing. You allow evil, it's a judgment. They can pretend to be thankful. They're not. They're ready to tear you up now because a judgment came on both people. And they're thinking about how to tear up from you, that you're stupid, that you allowed them in. But right 5 minutes earlier, they were crying that you didn't allow them in. So it's stuck between a rock and a hard place. The heavens are like bronze and the earth like iron for those that don't believe. And they're contradicting. Their life is a contradiction constantly. It contradicts and condemns itself all the time. It never sees it. It's stunning. It's dark. That's the definition of darkness. A lot to overcome, more than anyone could know. The natural man, what does he know? Even a believer, it's more than whatever we know now. Don't know what we don't know. Just trust it gets better. That's the narrow way. It gets better, but the tribulation gets worse from the world. Oh, the enemy's going to come after them, all of them. Make sure that the Father's word becomes fulfilled, prophecy fulfilled. Lost people scattered everywhere in unrest, all divided, going insane because they're in darkness. If they would only just believe for real, but the devil has said that word so many times it doesn't mean nothing now. It's like the wolf. The boy cried wolf out of all the things. Boy cried wolf. After you say it a few times, it becomes hardened. That's who man is. Then when it comes the 100th time and it's actually true, it's as good as the 99. Boy cried wolf. It's not real because the devil already did the masquerade for thousands of years already, since the beginning of creation. It's perfect masquerade with all things. It's nasty. The snake. Evil is a snake. It's nasty. It's angry. It's poisonous and only has evil intentions, and it only cares about itself. But what's the world say? This is good. This is good. It's only doing whatever it is to save itself. That's righteous. No, it's not. It's evil. It's a beast. Saving our soul is unrighteous. It's all selfishness and greed and evil. The saints love not their lives to the death. They love not their life to the death. Messiah laid his life down. He didn't preserve it and try to save it. I mean, this is to be seen in spirit what this means, but so it happened literally with him. Every believer to walk afterward. Carry the stake, put it on your shoulder, and follow him. Now, if someone gets a literal stake and starts walking around with that, that's not the understanding. They're not doing what that means now because they did that. And what valued is that? To just carry a literal stake everywhere you go. It has to be an understanding and discernment with everything. It's something like that. It's a burden. It's a load. The apostle talks about this burden and load, what it really means. Messiah's stake, he talks about carry it and carry other people's burdens too, other believers. Share the load. That the world can't understand what this load is, this burden is. It can't do that. Even in Hollywood, they have the Messiah with long hair saying, I must take on the sins of the world and put them on my shoulders. And if you want to follow me, you have to do the same. Pretty stunning that the world can say that through Hollywood and nobody in the church world actually believe it and do what this means. No, it's not. It's definitely not for the followers of Messiah to be perfected. Definitely not, says the enemy. No, don't be perfected. Even though that's one of Messiah's commands. That's not understood and throat got dry. Not understood carnally. But that is one of Messiah's commands, and I've heard them say, we only follow Messiah's commands, not Moses, in confusion. Yet one of those commands is be perfect like your heavenly Father is perfect. So that command is going out for people who believe, not those that don't believe. It's not going to be an unbeliever's reality, so they'll be against it, and they'll prove it very quickly. When a little pressure and testing is on them, they'll give themselves away. How can someone know what they need to be and what perfect is if they've never been perfect? If nobody ever has, when you have to become perfect, how do you know what that end is? It'll justify and make excuses for it every time, for the sin, for not being perfect, not being perfected. It puts heavy yokes and burdens on people in reality and sounds like it doesn't. The truth sounds like it does that to others, and it doesn't in reality. How backwards can it be? If it sounds like something, it's mostly dangerous and a lie. If it sounds good, sounds and looks like it's not doing something, it's because it's hiding. That's what the heart is doing to others. Those that don't hide real things, what the heart is doing, then we don't care what we sound like. Sounds like you're putting heavy yokes and burdens, too bad. You know, what did they think this path was? That they wouldn't be accused for doing so. You know, you're putting a heavy yoke and burden on people by talking about perfection. Yeah, Messiah did that too. They didn't realize that they can't attack truth without proving that they don't believe in Messiah. I don't hear his words at all. They just said that about Messiah. We didn't say those words first. Be perfect like your heavenly Father is perfect. What a heavy yoke and bondage Messiah must be putting on with his wicked heart, commanding people to be perfect in one day. That's what he's doing. No, he's not. And yet it needs to be happening. And yet he's not doing the evil thing. He didn't do any evil like this. It's what the false prophets do, is put heavy yokes and bondage on people, the carnal, commanding, law-keeping, so-called. And they're in such darkness that they just fulfill prophecy on the other side. Without evil, how does his word get fulfilled? How does he show his power? That they never even dare answer any question. They just pretend you don't exist and they think it solves the problem. They're in a literal delusion. Seeds get thrown at their head, not like evilly, but for a picture, and they bounce right off like a rubber ball, bouncy ball. Doing. That's how much it hates truth. Then it's got the guts through delusion, not because it has real guts, real strength from above, only in a delusion. Only through being blind can it make itself look like it's got strength, through pride. To then just keep on saying the same thing and keep on saying, prove and test all things, and they never do it themselves. We have to find out that Messiah's words are true, that they command all these things, but they don't lift up a finger. In reality, in their own heart, they don't lift up a finger to any of the things they say and what they really mean. They don't do themselves. It wasn't for a few Jews long ago. It's been true from the beginning of creation. To and what man is. He doesn't lift a finger to what he talks about and commands others to do. You who say don't commit adultery, do you commit adultery? You who say don't steal, do you rob temples? You know, the apostles showing some of this hypocrisy. Lying to someone is robbing from them. It's robbing from a temple. It's connected spiritually. Lying is also, stealing from someone, which is murder, which is death, which is wanting death for someone. It doesn't matter what the person says. They did the works that proved it. You can't do anything with the Father's things. I filled up my gas tank in reality, and then just go and say, I didn't fill it up. There's no reality to this. Put a bullet in someone's head and then say, I'm not a murderer. No reality to this. It's a delusion. Wicked intentions, making fun of someone and then say, I'm just joking. I didn't do anything. No reality to that. Zero. They have to bear their sin, and they are, because our Father's word is true. They're in darkness. They don't have life for doing that continually. If you want life, keep the commandments. That's what Messiah says. Keep the commandments. How Moses teaches them today? No. How Joshua teaches them today? Messiah, Yehoshua. Not the carnal commander that's warning people to stay around, a dead corpse. And if you're around a dead corpse, you can't keep the Passover now. You can keep it later. See, you were unclean. The Father reveals the natural thing in man's problems because man determines that. If you try to live by the letter only with this, that means someone's literally determining when you're unclean and not. They don't actually know. They're not speaking of real things. Were you here such and such? Okay, you are unclean now. What reality does it have in their heart and spirit? They don't know. That's the thing. They don't have a clue. So they're determining when someone's clean and unclean based on some carnal thing, some outward thing. They don't know. They don't know. That's the sin, is they act like they know. They don't know. Whether for yes or no. Doesn't know. Then why pretend to know? Just say you don't know and you'll get truth and repent. Doesn't want to do that. That would be denying itself. The only way Messiah denied himself. If he did that, and there is no other way, how much more for everyone after? Messiah himself, God Almighty, denied himself? No. Messiah, the man, denied himself. The true Messiah, Son of Man, Son of Elohim, not God, the Creator, denied himself. The Father can't deny himself. They can read that. Elohim cannot deny himself. They can read those words directly. But somehow the third part of the Trinity can deny itself, and these are all one. So that means if one denies itself, since it's all one, it would have to deny all of itself, wouldn't it? Nope. Nope, not now. Now there's an exception because we got exposed. Now we'll just change the words. Sick. It's what they do with all their doctrine. These three are one, three heads on one body. If one denies themselves and it's all one, how is the body not denied, being denied? Some sick, strange, wicked doctrine of demons always protecting its lies and sorcery through its magicianship and trickery with words. It just says whatever it needs to say in the moment, and then it changes back to the other words later. It's tossed by the wind, changing always on the oceans. It's never the same and steady because it doesn't know. It's pretending it knows. The Father's not tempted by sin, but somehow the Creator, Messiah, God, was tempted in every way, shape, and form by sin. Tempted, yes, we read he was tempted. Like we're tempted because we're not God, the Creator. I wonder what they think about themselves if their Messiah is God. And God cannot be tempted, right? God, man, the man of sin, pride, cannot be told anything, cannot be tempted with sin. He's perfect already and cannot be corrected. Because a fool cannot be corrected. Like they can read, fool cannot be corrected. They can look up that word cannot. It means cannot. That's a stony heart, not a soft, moldable heart that's changing according to the Father's will and purpose, forming us to what we need to be. It means you're changing. It means we're wrong. It means we change and aren't the same stony rock that never changes. The person with not so good memory will remember a splinter of a sin for 40 years, and when they need to use it against you, they will. 40 years later, they'll remember that splinter. They don't have any forgiveness. They proved it right there by doing that. You did this when you were 15, and it's like 30 years later, and someone's bringing up something when you were 15. That just proved that their heart never forgave that. In reality, it proved it. It's already over. It's not about the words. It reveals the heart when it's discerned and seen. The spirit is discerned that it did not forgive at any time. Then it likes to talk about being nice and forgiving people, and it never does this in reality itself. So much hypocrisy that needs to die. Man is a hypocrite. Mankind is a hypocrite. And it's blinder than a log in someone's eyes. Messiah's parable teaching that all hypocrisy is blind, very blind. It's incredibly blind. It's a log in the eye. It's not just regular blind, which is blind. It's incredibly blind. That's how you show that it's very, very blind and stupid about all kinds of crazy things. How do you show in spirit something that's blind, but it's like even worse than something else? The log grows. Pinocchio's nose grows. It's a lie, but now it's like, here's how you show a bigger lie. It grows bigger. What is that? A mockery, anyways? Pinocchio with Jonah or something? Dumbo getting drunk. This is all a bunch of sorcery for little kids that teaches you in spirit that lying, cheating, murdering, killing, stealing, destroying is good. They'll never say the words because they're cowards. They can't do that. All the works prove it, but if they don't say the words, this is teaching you to kill, steal, and destroy, kids. Therefore, it didn't do that. That's just pretty shallow and blind. That's literally like killing a man and just saying I didn't do it, or just not saying you don't say you did that. Therefore, you didn't, even though the works prove it. I've seen the Father's judgment. Yet come back on myself too. You do evil to someone, he's sending devils to come after you. Now you have to overcome this thing. You have to pay for it. He'll send a raging person, some lunatic out in the world that has just clowning. They're in delusion. They don't know what they're doing themselves. But how on earth is it that something's happening that you see that's according to truth and they don't personally know themselves? How is that possible? And where it gets real difficult is it could be from sin or it could just be a test. It doesn't have to be either one. It doesn't have to be sin. But, what the world sees, it will just determine it as sin every time. Job is a wicked sinner because I see judgment coming on him, on the destruction of his flesh, which is working for his good. That's the teaching. But spare his life. Spare his life. But destroy that nasty flesh. All the works of the flesh. Destroy. It's Satan's for the destruction of the flesh, working out for our own good, if it can be seen and done. Right down the narrow way, because a little to the left or right, it's going to be prideful, hypocrisy, and evil. And what do his friends say? He's wicked. Nobody gets this judgment unless they're wicked sinners. What does his wife say? His own family, what do they say in this world? You're my better half. How come it's just not half? Why is it better? Because it's prideful. That's why it's better. There's nothing better about a carnal woman or a carnal man. Both ways. Better. At what? Sin? Curse him and die. Just curse him and die. Cold, brutal, and heartless. If it sheds tears, it was because maybe it lost half of the farm or something, or money. It doesn't care about the person at all. Curse him and die. Your own family, your own friend, so-called. That's what they'll do every time. A little bit of destruction of the flesh. And it could be because someone's in sin and they're being destroyed, or it could be a righteous judgment to further refine Job, who's called righteous. It could be either one. How would someone know the difference? There's no automatic. That'll lead to evil straight away if it's automatic every time. It's just a matter of very short time before it's evil. And it's not even about guessing it right. If you guess something and it happens to be right, that was evil because it wasn't with knowledge. It was guessing, which is sin, which is doing corruption in the heart. It doesn't matter if it guesses it right. If it wasn't a guess for real, that was already corruption and sin. It doesn't become right just because you stab someone in the night, nail them with the knife right in the middle of the forehead, bullseye. But that's who man is, though. He looks at the outward thing only. He can't see the thoughts and intentions, which are all evil, according to Genesis. Every thought and intention of the heart is only evil continually. Not every outward work that masquerades as the light. That's going to be mostly good continually. Yeah, how someone looks will be mostly good continually, most of the time. That's what it's doing. The heart is evil continually. If the enemy masquerades as a messenger of light, what does that make someone look in reality in 2022? What will they look like all the time in front of people? Good person. Means nothing to the Creator, means nothing to Messiah. That is all sin right there. Zero heart, only looking like it has a heart for an image. It gets a picture of a heart and just puts an image over its body. I have the image of a heart wrapped around me. I don't have a heart. I have an image of the heart. I have this image of the heart because I have no heart. If I did have a heart, this image would go away and die. And then you would be accused all the time and have no protection against other enemies that worship the image of the beast. And it would be too bad, so sad. Too bad that everyone thinks that and believes that. No sinner ever acknowledges its sins in the heart ever until they repent, until light comes to them. They'll be resisting bitterly and justifying it bitterly to their end. The things that people say don't seem to matter at all, or that's stupid, it's no big deal. These are the only things that matter. What people say don't matter, that's what matters. All the images don't matter. How something looks and sounds doesn't matter, which is the world's matter. All of that doesn't matter by itself. You just tore away its life, its image. It is its life, an image, which isn't real. Touch not the unclean thing and he will receive you. Well, it's a problem if this understanding is never given and someone commands you not to touch a dead carcass and he will receive you. No, he won't. No, he won't receive you for obeying that literal carnal command and not doing this literal thing with that in your mind and heart, only seeing that. No, he won't receive you. That's how you tell someone to get lost and destroyed. That's how you say, do this if you don't want the Creator. Do this. And while you believe it's going to make him receive you, do this for not receiving you so that you guarantee it. And yet those words are true. How amazing is that? Evil on one side and good on the other, enmity, darkness and the other light. The apostle quotes some of this scripture and then he talks about unbelievers. People don't touch the unclean thing. Do what that means and he will receive you. Do what that really means and he'll receive you. Yeah, this is good now. Learn what that means and he'll receive you for wanting that. Not literally touching a carcass and he will receive you. They don't believe Messiah's words. The outside can't do anything to the inside by itself. It could be good or evil, something out there, but it can't do anything. Let me put on some purple royal clothes. Now my heart is cleansed. No, it can't do that. Can't do that. It's not going to do that. It's going to do the opposite for most of the time. When isn't it going to do that? It's what people want to show off. This is what you do when you don't have a heart and don't have understanding. You show everyone how much understanding you have by making an appearance for it in reality. Dressing nice like that, like royal. The more royal someone dresses, it seems like the more delusion they're in, like the popes and priests in there. they're even worse off because they do what the letter says there. What great enmity. Who can hear it? These things represent something inwardly to be lived. But, a bunch of jewelry, fancy clothes, earrings, like we even read somewhere else, New Testament, James, not to like put on all this stuff. It's not about this at all. But inwardly, that's what the Father loves. That's what's that word, precious in his sight. Doing what that means inside. Humble is obeying the Creator. Even if the whole world says you were prideful, and if you obeyed the Creator for real, it was humble, while the whole world called you prideful. It doesn't matter. That's how it'll be. It just, that has to be real, though. The person has to know it's real and not in a delusion and think they did something that's humble, but it was actually prideful. And then the world happens to be right about you. Blessed. Where is there a blessing for the whole world saying you're a good person? Try and find it. Messiah's words, try and find it. You'll find the opposite. We'll find the opposite. Blessed for those that curse you, use you, spitefully use you, and speak all manner of evil against you. Now you're blessed. Why? Because of doing whatever righteous good is, doing the Father's will. Never, it, it's always speaking about the real, never the fake thing. If someone's doing this and that's why this happens, now you're blessed. While the whole world curses you like they did Messiah. That's the truth. If someone's getting blessed and raised up in the world, it should be a red flag. The whole world speaking good, raising up. And they'll have all their enemies too, because the world's divided. But nevertheless, someone gets risen up in the world. That's not a good sign. Millions of people, thousands, hundreds, it's rising up in this world and it's being spoken of as a good person. What does that even mean, good person? There's no one good. I'm not good. There's no one good. And it really means good. Yes, it does. The world means it. It calls good evil all the time, and it means it. Now, if it gets questioned, it'll try to say the words that make it slip by and look good for the moment. It's just that crafty, like a snake. It fills in that little hole through its sneaky body that just cleverly fits right through everything and makes itself work somehow because it's a snake. Oh, there seems to be an obstacle. Well, the snake can find a way around it because it's got that snake body of it. It can just do all kinds of things like that. What is that? Someone gets bit by a poisonous snake and they're acting like, please don't kill the snake. Please don't kill the snake. I don't want him to die. He's only doing whatever he thinks is right. It's funny, I do read speaking about something about this to kill the animal like that kills someone. Pretty interesting. I read that. Of course, it's going to do the backwards thing. But what is that? Talking about like a literal animal or something. Of course, there's a higher meaning for everything. Someone might die. They don't know yet if it was a poisonous wet bite or dry. And they're trying to save the snake desperately. What is that? If someone, something What do they think is happening in creation? It's devouring itself constantly. It's not going to save anything because one person decides to be such a good person today and show how much he loves snakes and, save the snake, save the animal. Even this is not to say do wickedness to animals at all. It's just, what is this specific thing? What is that? It's a cursed world. How obvious is it that creation's devouring itself? If you don't kill that rabbit, something else will. That's an animal. It'll get it. Or maybe it'll be one of the few that survives, its length of life. But, good chance it will be grabbed by something and swallow it whole. That snake swallows its meal whole. It's freaky. To protect it and say this is not freaky is a lie. It is freaky. It is evil. And people are so backwards. Just call it for what it is. That's what the truth is. It's meant to be like, it's cursed. It is freaky and evil. It is no good. This is not ideal. It's messed up. We read it cursed right in Genesis, everything. What do they think that means? It's cursed everywhere. There's enmity between all the animals and they're scared, because it's cursed. Won't always be like that forever, like some through their doctrine say. Be like this forever and ever because they love darkness. It's going to be darkness forever and ever. Or some, in the age to come, they're going to be the king stoning people, literally. It's going to be brought back, stoning. For some reason, it's gone right now. It'll be brought back. Maybe it's because Messiah paid the, through death, it also did away with some other things, like literal death for carnal, literal sin. But those scriptures are real, though. The judgment is spiritual death, absolutely spiritually stoned. People will spiritually stone. They don't have to throw a literal rock to do so with their heart. Stone people forever and ever. That's some serious darkness people are in. That doctrine reveals its heart. It believes, it claims to believe, it holds on to it if it's questioned. That not only the age to come, it's going to be forever. There won't be ages. This age will be literally forever. So he'll be stoning people forever to death for what they think sin is, which is, touching a dead carcass. Stone them. It's a brutal, wicked heart. It's almost, it is hysterical at the proper time to be that off. It's hysterically evil. And it's what, a messenger of truth that believes it's going to stone people forever and ever. Himself stoning people. I don't understand that. It can't, it doesn't compute to me. How could it be that evil? Neither does burning people on fire forever. It's becoming less and less understand. Not that it was something good ever, but coming out of delusion, it's getting harder to comprehend how that can be in somebody. As soon as they burn themselves forever, then it won't be then it won't be hypocrisy, at least, do to others as you would like done back to you by others. Burn itself then. Be the first to cast the stone, like Messiah says. He who is without sin cast the stone. Yeah, they tried to trap him. with evil intent. It doesn't even matter what the subject is. The heart was wicked. It said what it did to try and trap Messiah and make him look like an evil sinner. That's what its goal was. That's why we read trap, to catch him in something. That was the people's intention. That's the heart of the matter. Now, the subject could be anything. It could be about pencils. In this case, it's about adultery and stoning a woman. What do you say, Messiah? What do you say? What should we do? It's lying, deceiving, wicked intent. It's murdering. It's heartless. It doesn't care about it has no mercy, just revealing who man is. Yeah, there was a change with the new covenant, a big change. People with the old covenant don't want to hear that. Monstrous, huge change. Yes, stoning someone by our own hand is wicked. That's the change. Have they heard of it? It's an evil heart that does that. What's it say about the people that are willing to do that for 1,500 years? Wicked heart. If it wasn't so, the Father wouldn't destroy natural Jerusalem utterly. For New Jerusalem, the nation that would produce the fruit that never did, truly, that was even spoken of with Moses, that he would consume these people, and out of another nation I'll raise, but then obviously the patience, the long suffering, all of this shown, but that nation finally came on, Messiah's people are that nation that we read of with Moses. That was pretty far off from that point, and now is, that produced the fruit that natural Jerusalem didn't. So the tree was cursed. Messiah got angry at a tree, and it was cursed, and it dried up because it didn't produce any fruit. It's not about a literal tree. He's not getting angry at a literal tree that's literally not producing fruit. That's not the understanding. That tree is Israel, carnal people, the unbelieving, that didn't do good works from the heart, didn't produce fruit. So he withered. It's time to cut the roots off. Like John the Baptist said, the axe is ready, waiting to cut the roots off that don't produce. It's laying there waiting to cut it off. And someone that's doing the Father's will, they're like a tree planted that grows and stays and remains. It's a full life. Those that don't produce fruit, they're cut down, and then the wood people look at and go, "Oh, this is good for fire," and then they burn it, and men take it and burn it. How can we get the understanding on these things without the Father giving it, without asking? Otherwise, we'll be preaching some doctrine of demons, of the wicked lie of the Creator torturing people forever with no end. Where's the proof? There's no proof. They read the letters. They'll say, "Read it. Have you ever read? You must be deceived. Says fire. Says fire." They will contradict themselves instantly already with other things. They don't follow their own standard and reasoning, do they, with other things? Where do you draw the line? Where do you rightly divide between two things? That is the point. We don't know how to live his word. It's supposed to be seeking the Creator for real and what it means and how to live it. We don't know how to rightly divide his word. That's monstrous. I can see that now. It's incredibly insane to rightly divide his word of ourself. Can't be done. Not even any hope for that. I don't think it matters what someone does if their heart's right. And, that's everything. That's huge. Whether they choose to eat something like this or that, like on Passover or something. Don't know that matters. What does matter is doing whatever we read in the heart for real. If someone's doing that, then what difference is it if they eat rice or beans, What difference is it? Obviously, some things are going to be gray areas for people, or it's not a sin, but someone doesn't do it with faith, so then for him it's a sin. And the other does it with faith, and it's, as long as it's not actual sin. It's something that's not actual sin could be a sin for someone if they don't do it with faith or have understanding, then their conscience is guilty in that sin. Breaking the commandments is always sin. That's not optional. Oh, murder is sometimes not sin. Adultery is sometimes not sin. If I have faith, like some will teach. Or some have so far gone that they literally teach, I will show you how to be perfect. And I came across one person some time back. And they got people believing in them, in that doctrine, in this thing. If you do everything with faith, it's not sin. Just do it with faith. Watch porn with faith. That came out of his mouth. Now, where does it stop? Murder with faith, commit adultery with faith. There is no line with these people. There is no sense or reasoning or logic at all. It just makes whatever it wants at the moment. It just created doctrine to justify what its heart does continually. A pervert, lustful, adultery. Yes, honk to that train. It just created doctrine to conform to its heart instead of seeking actual truth and repenting if it's wicked and sin. It justifies it by creating a doctrine that justifies their sin. And it believes it's right. It can't hear anybody else. It makes it look like it knows. It gets angry when someone says this is wrong. It starts raging and steaming and trying to make itself look like righteous, like true. Everyone does it. Some better, some not as good for a masquerade. It's incredible. They believe a lie. How do they know? They're in a delusion if they believe their lie in their own heart. That's the Father catching the wise in their own deceit and craftiness. They don't know. They believe their lie like they can read. Those that don't love truth, they will believe a lie. A strong delusion comes on them so that they believe a lie. That means they actually believe it in their heart, that the lie is true. It's not a joke. How on earth could anyone know what's true and what's a lie if mankind is in this condition about everything? There is no way to know apart from hearing from the Creator, the insane thing. You need meds. You need to lay off that bottle, hearing voices, talking about itself. It hears all kinds of voices, anything but the true. how many people seek the Creator with all their heart? Because it's only through doing what that means that they will find him, and hear from him. They can't mock the Creator. If you sin, that's going to be a judgment. Darkness, death, confusion. So it's not very hard for someone to trick someone into doing real sin while they actually got them to believe they're doing good. Just like Eve did to Adam. What could be so wrong with eating this gift, this fruit? I give it to you as a gift. I love you, Adam. I secretly want you to sin and go down and destroy you. That's my intention in reality. But my image says I love you and I give you a gift. Please, please, I insist. Take it, because somewhere I know the devil in me. That you're going to go down and sin and it'll destroy you. Somewhere in there I know that. Just know how to do evil. Come, Jacob, let's deceive my husband and your father. Put some hairy stuff on there so he thinks it's Esau. Come, let's deceive him. We'll get him to believe the lie is real, and I believe the lie is real. We're actually doing good. I'm going to say we're doing good, and somehow the Father works out his plan through the delusion. That can't be undone. That is sin. It doesn't change that the Father used it. Through that, Jacob is chosen. Yeah, through the actual wicked sin, Jacob is chosen and gets the birthright. Both are true. One doesn't undo the other. So evil happened, and the Father worked out his actual purpose with that evil and purpose in mind. It happened through the evil. Jacob got the birthright. That's how he works. So we don't want to sin on purpose, but the Father has a way that through the sin, the good thing couldn't have come any other way unless you sinned. Couldn't have learned any other way unless someone sinned. So let's go sin so that grace increases. That wicked, lawless apostle that so many say he's wicked. He has no clue what he's talking about. He's wicked. Someone would want to say that, because if it's that good, if the Father's working out even evil for good that couldn't even come through any other way, well, let's sin so more good comes. And those that do that are dead. They're going to be crushed by their own sin that does that with the heart. Now, one thing has to be done while the other's done, and not the other undone. And if someone can't see how two things can be done, then that's where we ask him to see how it's possible, because otherwise it'll be a contradiction and impossible in someone's mind. With man, it is impossible. With the Creator, all things possible. That's why Messiah said that. Nothing's too hard. It literally is impossible until he shows us a way on how something could be done without contradicting and doing evil elsewhere. It's a fine line always. To not want sin, to not want to sin with the heart so grace increases, but also not want to sin at all, for real. But then if you do, realize that through this was the only way, that, and still not want to sin further, it's always going to be tempting someone to do the evil thing. On every side, it's going to be tempting to do whatever evil at the present time. I think that's all I got. Just had some thoughts on that scripture and the title and Passover, since that's, not that far away. I would think most people probably won't mention anything about it that, that speak of Passover, but these other scriptures not touching the corpse. But if they do, then they'll say, don't touch the corpse, and probably won't say anything else about it. And if you're not circumcised, you can't take part in the feast. They'll be literally saying, if you're not literally circumcised, you can't take part of any of these things. No, if you're not circumcised in the heart, you can't draw near and take part of any of these real things. That's the truth. Circumcision, literal, physical, is nothing. Like we read, either one is nothing because they mean and represent things, but that thing itself, all by itself, never meant anything more than representing and meaning Gentile and Jew being brought together as one. The literal thing all by itself never meant something else other, more than that. That's why the apostle calls it nothing. It won't do any good for someone to do or not to do. But beyond that, it's what someone's heart is doing. Why would they do something? Well, if their heart thinks they do something and that's what makes them righteous, they're in serious trouble for real. That's how quick that goes down the drain into darkness. It's a heart condition, pride, confusion, stoning people for eternity. That's the confusion. With how some people talk, nobody can walk in the Spirit. No one, unless they obey them and read a certain translation only and are reading letters constantly. Now this is how you walk in the Spirit. Obey me. I'm your master. I'm your king. Do what I say. That's what they want. Be in slavery to themselves because they're in slavery to sin. How obvious is it when someone is given a little light to see that that's what this world loves and wants? It wants you to get on your knees to someone. It wants you to beg for forgiveness and beg for whatever thing they might take just so that in hopes that you get on your knees and beg them for it back. Oh, Messiah says if they take something, walk away. Don't ask for it back. And then you'll do what the righteous thing is and be blessed while they're judged and cursed. And the judgment will come back on them how it should. And if you don't do the right thing, the Father's judgment won't come back on them like it would have. That's true. Watch them get bewildered for not asking for it back if they take something. Walk away. The Father doesn't know that it got taken. Uh-oh. I'm God now. I need to go and get it back because I don't trust the Creator at all for supplying me with basic things. He already knows. Now, who's going to do that in reality if it were to happen? Practically no one in their heart. Someone could walk away and it looked like they didn't ask for it back, but they're raging on the way home, raging and cursing the person. They didn't do what Messiah said there because it's not about flesh. Someone that didn't ask for it back, literally, like they made an appearance, they could have obeyed that or they could have broke it while looking like they kept it. It depends what someone actually did in their heart. They're raging about it and cursing the person afterwards. They didn't keep anything. They did sin while they looked good in front of others. That's their definition of not asking for it back. Some carnal thing to make a show for. That means to do that in the heart. It's like, it's unbelievable. Someone gets slapped in Hollywood and they say, Jesus told me to turn the other cheek, and they like turn it, and that's like their understanding. Make a show for it. Sin while they claim to believe in Messiah by making a show for it. When he said to do it in your secret, don't do this like everyone else is doing. They want to show how righteous they are and how good they are because they're empty inside. It's covering their image, is covering their sin in their mind. They're doing that because they don't do the real thing inside. They're 50 pounds more of muscle now because they're incredibly weak, so they're covering it by being buff on the outside, by pumping iron to some extreme. It's covering its insecurity and weakness inside every time. Because if they did have some strength from above, they wouldn't do that. Because bodily exercise in this way profits little. And plus, that would be worried for doing something for everyone to see you out of pride. So how could someone do that? That's not in pride. They can't. Certain things are just a giveaway. Certain extremes just become an obvious giveaway. It's being done so it can be seen through pride. What else? And for itself to worship and look in the mirror too, but it's for others to see. That's not sin in this world. That's good. That's someone taking care of themselves, whatever crafty way they'll try to justify it all. And the problem is in the heart, not by itself, the 50 pounds of extra muscle. Why does it exist? Samson is a strong man. Well, that's how the Father shows through the letters his strength. But in reality, Samson is not strong from within, from the Father. It's just outwardly. And he destroys people, which is good and bad, depending whether seeing through carnality and through the lens of man or through what it means. Because death is the answer for a believer. We need other people to die. That's why they're fearing for their soul, because it threatens their life, the truth. Death leads to life. So is Samson doing good or evil according to the understanding? Destroying everyone around you. That's what a violent carnal person does. But then again, destroying other people around you is good. It's for life through an understanding. Plucking out your eye is good. But plucking out someone's eye literally is violently evil. It's not good to do that work, pluck someone's eye out. What it means is good, though. The eye that causes to sin, that'll lead to life. Plucking someone's literal eye out will lead to strong judgment and severe death if it were done. Killing someone, destroying them, cutting off their hands. If someone actually went out and did that, they would be destroyed utterly, because it's violently evil. But cutting off the hand that sins is good. It's the only way to life, is to destroy that old man. How does the Father show it? Samson is destroyed. It's all backwards and contradicting to the natural man. All of the Father's truth is like perfectly 180 to actually do in reality, backwards from the heart. It takes a lot of power and understanding to turn the other cheek, not literally just speaking, but what it means when it's time to turn the other cheek. It takes all the power from above and understanding and wisdom to not do evil back. Whatever it is, it could be anything, not slapping the cheek. Any kind of evil that comes towards someone and you not doing it back, it applies to all of it. Or washing the feet, Messiah says you don't understand right now, but later you will. Is it about literally washing feet? Or does this something much greater that applies to anything that it applies to? Not good for the gods and kings. Someone needs to wash their feet. They don't do that. But the true Messiah didn't come to be served. I don't like that bit. That's bad news. But he came to serve. The King of Kings came to serve. Contradicting, because the carnal king gets served only and gets worshipped only. He commands and controls. Not the King of Kings, no. Not as we're to be now. Set the example. What did he do? Did he gather disciples for himself? Well, it looks like it. It could be claimed because he had disciples. Therefore, he must have gathered disciples for himself. Done. Blind judgment, evil, because it kind of looks like that. Therefore, he did that. That's what makes all of his truth incredibly hard. Is it's like that with virtually everything. It's like that. That's how easy it is to not see the difference between good and evil and be counted for evil every time, with every detail. It's something like that because it looked like it. Therefore, it is. And he didn't do that. And if he did, he would have his servants fight for them and they wouldn't arrest him. But now that's not what he did at all. And so they're all confused at that point. They pretty much died dead because they didn't have the Spirit yet. As long as he was around, they had some light, even though they didn't understand all these things. I mean, no one can in one day, but they didn't have the Spirit yet even. So when Messiah's killed, they're killed, utterly destroyed. Until the Spirit came to them. Then they grew strong and believed and started seeing all these things that he told them to be brought back to remembrance. Without the Father's Spirit, man's nothing. They can kind of look like something if they're standing by someone's side that does have the Father, but as soon as that person's cut off, they were utterly destroyed inside. I think I'm going to end it for real this time. Peace, take care, seek truth from above.